What's up, guys? I'm going to be installing the CV Fabrication Turboback exhaust system on my 2.7 liter Bronco. They were gracious enough to send me this kit to install and make an install video. We're going to see how it goes because there's a lot of tight spaces, so it might be hard to get video. I'm hoping to see some improvements in performance, sound, hear the turbo spool up faster, and open up possibilities for tuning down the road. So here's my package over here. I got down pipes with cats and the catback exhaust system. So let's get into it. Let's go ahead and cut her open and see what she's made of. So first we have our catalytic converters and our down pipes. Let's get all this taken out and I'll lay it all out, give you guys a shot of everything all laid out in the grass. So here we have the catback portion. There's the down pipes. Everything looks great over there. I'll show you in a second. And here is the catback. All right, so here we go. Here's my muffler, my other muffler. And this piece right here is an adapter for 2-door versus 4-door applications. Mine is a 2-door, so I don't need that piece. So you got all your connectors over here. I opted for the stainless or the polished tips. I'm just a fan of how the polished changes color with heat, how the heat affects it over time. And I don't know if it'll be visible, but I think it'll look pretty good tucked under my bumper. So let's get to it. It's hot. So here's the tools that I'm starting out with. I picked up an exhaust hanger remover. Don't know if I'll need that, but I need it for some other projects. And I picked up some new blades. Not sure if I'll need to cut anything, but it might. I'm out of blades. I got my toolkit, PB blaster, which from what I read online said you'll need it. Red Bull, water. Stay hydrated, stay energized. Let's go. All right, guys, so I just want to give you guys a heads up on a couple things that I learned while doing this install. One is if you don't have an O2 sensor socket, get one. You can rent them from AutoZone. That's what I did. I sat there and struggled trying to use a wrench, and it was a huge pain, so I went and rented one, and it made it so much easier. Two is make sure your turbo connections at the cats are good and tight and secure. That's the most important connection. What I did is I had loosened that connection to try to get the other clamps on, and in doing that, I wasn't able to get a proper seal. So when I first fired it up, I had a leak right there, and that could be potentially dangerous because it's before your O2 sensors. So once you get your cats bolted up, don't loosen them and do any other connections. That's the most important connection. But other than those two things, the socket and the connection, everything else was pretty smooth. This kit seems great. I'm excited to show it to you guys. Hope you guys enjoy the video. So our first step will be getting to the turbos behind this wheel well, which I'm gonna pull that off. Passenger side, you may not need to. I think you can get to it from under the hood, but we'll find out. I've got some skid plates that I'll have to take off to access everything, and then I'm gonna put it up on jack stands just to give me a little more room. So I'm gonna do that right now. All right, now that that's done, I need to take off the inner wheel liner. So I bought this little electric screwdriver, and I have found that it makes getting these clips out so much easier. Well, I thought I made it easy, but this one just straight up broke off. Oops. So I wish this wasn't so dirty so you could see, but you've got 7mm bolts right here. You've got 4 of them. Securing the fender liner. So once you've got all the pop clips and the screws and bolts all done, you can go ahead and pull this out. All right, I got that wrestled out. Just a warning, if you do take your Bronco off-road, it is filthy behind there. So throw that off to the side. I need to clean my engine. So before you do all this, you should probably make sure your turbos and cats are cooled off. Mine's still a little warm from driving around this morning. I'm gonna let that cool off just a little bit more. All right, so this is my transfer case skid. I'm gonna remove this. These are 15mm bolts. Zip those off real quick. A couple more, get to those. So these bolts are 15mm. You may need some PB Blaster on them because they are rusty. Ugh. Let that sit for a few minutes. Again, those are 15mm bolts. Alright, so once you get those nuts off, we're gonna go through and undo all the hangers that are along the cat back, and then we'll work our way up to the cats. So I bought this exhaust hanger remover tool at the local auto parts store, Advance Auto. It was like 30 bucks. You can probably get them cheaper on Amazon. Highly recommend this because some of those hangers can be very difficult to deal with. Okay, so here's the next one, and you get them lined up and you squeeze. Alright, so I got this one out. I sprayed some PB Blast on her to try to lube it up a little bit, and that worked. You got one more, well, 2 more if you're on the stock muffler behind the axle. So I don't have the stock muffler on, so but just follow that trick and you can get it out easily. So I just had a straight pipe on here before, and I wanted to hopefully quiet it down, but also just kind of get rid of the stock piping and get some better flow. But here is one of your OEM hangers, and the other is over there. Mine is right there. That's just something I made up, and when I put this tip on, but I'm going to remove that, and then we can pull the whole cat back out, and then we will work on the cats. Now you want to be careful when you undo the last hanger or whatever, so it doesn't come crashing down. I still have a bolt holding in at the flex joint up there, so it's not going to fall yet, but just be mindful of that so you don't hurt yourself. So now you can slowly maneuver it out of the way. Also be mindful of the hangers so they don't catch on any lines or hoses. All right, halfway there, I hope. All right, now here's the fun part. We need to figure out how to get the OEM cats out of that space. We don't have a lot of room to work with. Could disconnect the drive shaft. Don't really want to do that. Yeah, we could cut right there. I'm not opposed to that. I gotta figure something out, and I will let you know. Alright, so I reached out to a couple people, and I'm going to have to cut the pipe behind the cat, and then hopefully you can kind of wiggle it out of there. That's what most people are saying, so here we go. So I'm gonna make my cut right there where I started it, and then I'm gonna unbolt the turbo from the cat and try to finagle it out. Here we go. Okay, so now that I got that cut, probably cut that off too, over there by that cat. All right, so on the passenger side, I'm gonna cut, I started right there. So I'm gonna cut that side off and then try to get this Y pipe out of here. All right, now that that's cut off, we can start wiggling this loose. So our next step is gonna be removing the O2 sensors and then disconnecting the catalytic converters from the turbo. So there's one O2 sensor and the other one is probably around the back side of this, so you have to go from underneath to get it. I sprayed some PB Blaster on the O2 sensors because that's gonna be very tough. Go ahead and hit the connector bolts with it too. Let it sit for a few minutes and then we'll try. All right, so I got one of them loose. I'm over here on the driver's side. I took a lot of PB Blaster and I took a dead blow hammer to kind of hit the wrench while I was trying to get it loose, and I finally broke it loose. So now I'll do that 3 more times. Twice, so one more time. It's on the inside of this, so you'd have to go from below. And then the other side, they're pretty easy to access. So I'm over here on the passenger side, and you have a much better view of the O2 sensors. Here's one. To get that off, you'll need a 22mm wrench. Here's the turbo connections. So that's a 16mm bolt. And then your other O2 sensor right there. Hit those all with PB. And you're gonna need a wobble socket or something to get to the other bolt for the other side of the gasket. That is gonna be pretty tough to get to, but we'll make it work. All right, so I had to take my wheel off so I could get in there. I was having some trouble with this O2 sensor up here, so I'm just gonna take off the pipe and then try to get that off. So right now I'm just undoing these turbo bolts. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut right here so that I can access the nut on the other side of this. You don't need the stock cat anymore, so cutting that thing off, maybe that'll allow me to get this O2 sensor off as well, but there's really no other way I could get it out, so Sawzall is coming out. If you decide to go this route, be very, very careful, because you have lines and oil lines, and you have your O2 sensor wiring, you got your engine block behind it, so be very, very careful, and also try not to cut the stud on the other side, because you'll need that. So kind of right here seems to be a safe spot to avoid the stud and the hoses and everything, and just don't go too far in. When you finish, be careful of this line right here. I actually went ahead and put that nut back on just to seal this up so you don't get any dust that flies off, or metal or whatever inside the turbo. So just kind of keep it sealed up a little bit. All right, so now that I got the cat cut off, I was able to get to the other nut that holds that on there, and so now the turbo is exposed. And now once I pull the cat off the other side, just got to get this O2 sensor off, and then everything should start to bolt up, all the new stuff. So I've heard that everything goes in easier than it came off, so hopefully that's the case. Would you look at that? I got it all out. It's not easy. So now we are ready to start bolting up the new stuff. Exciting. All right, so I had to run real quick and I ran out of daylight, but I wanted to at least get these cats on before I wrap up for the night. So here's the CVF catalytic converter. I just kind of worked it up through between the cross member and the drive shaft, and I guess you reuse the OEM bolts, and if you got the stainless steel gaskets, you get rid of the original turbo gasket and you replace it. So that is what I did, and now I'm just working on getting these bolts tightened up, and then I'll come back to it in the morning. So on the passenger side, you can get to the back side turbo bolt with a 16mm wrench pretty easily with the new cats. And then this one you could get like a socket or wrench or whatever. Pretty easy to get to, so much easier than the stock cats. Next step is grab these clamps, and you want to grab your Y pipe, and we'll go get that fitted in there right now. Alright guys, so if you did not drop this cross member, you're gonna have to loosen the cats so that they have some wiggle room so that you can get this pipe in, and then once you get that in, you can snug these up so they're tight, but don't be like me and tighten these up and then have to go loosen them, because the bolts aren't super easy to get to. So just a heads up, put this in first, snug the cats up, and then clamp everything down. So once you get these clamps and everything all secured, and then you come down here, grab the this short pipe. It goes into this hanger right here, and then they supply new hardware to connect right here, and then you put on this section, which has a bend at the end that goes all over the diff. It's not hung up yet, but, and then you use this clamp right here to secure that. I always find it a little bit easier. I use this grease, just kind of lube this up so it'll go in the hanger easier. I just find that much easier. Alright, so now that I got that hung up, I'm gonna come over to this clamp, which I believe is 16mm, and I want to tighten it. Alright, so once you get your hangers on, we can go ahead and do our tips. Again, I did the silver tips because I just like the way the heat affects, the way it affects the color, and gives it kind of a cool look, I think. Again, 16mm. And here it is. Sorry I have so much stuff on the back of my tailgate, but there you go. CVF Turboback exhaust. Alright, so the final steps are these catalytic converter warm-up procedure. So we're gonna start it.